Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, free agency for the Detroit Lions is essentially over, right? Yes, they can still go out and sign free agents. They can still go make moves on the roster to create cap space and go sign new players, new talents, and bring in more opportunities. But for the most part, the Detroit Lions free agency sessions are over. They're pretty much out of money, other than the money that they're going to need to pay their upcoming draft class, and they really don't have too many more holes on the roster that could be addressed well through free agency. So today I wanted to talk about the remaining free agents, the players we have yet to talk about, and the players that we didn't get to talk about after day one of free agency. Talk about the recent deals, the recent re-signings, the recent free agent acquisitions, and of course grade the free agency period up to this point. And if they do add after, then we can make an update video. But with that being said, let's get right on into taking a look and grading the Detroit Lions 2023 free agency class. Now, starting off with the re-signings, we're going to start off with Will Harris, who signed a one-year, $2.5 million contract. We did talk about Will Harris a little bit in the last video, but the contract details came out, and I think it makes the contract a little bit worse. We talked about how the coaching staff really likes him, how he's a versatile player, how he can play in the slot or at the safety position, but he re-signed for $2.5 million, which is pretty significant capital for a team that could have gone somewhere else at corner and signed a cheap corner like Isaiah Oliver to probably a very similar, if not cheaper deal for a player that has proven more in the NFL. I give this pick a C-, not because it necessarily makes the team worse, but because I don't believe it makes the team better. And for the value, I think you could have signed a better football player. Now, another re-signing that was made this offseason was John Kaminsky, a player that we didn't get to talk about in the last video we did. But John Kaminsky is a B-plus signing a 2-year, $8.5 million contract. He was the most, I think, impactful player on the Detroit Lions defensive line. Now, what do I mean by that? He wasn't the most impactful on the stat sheet. He didn't put up the most sacks or the most pressures or the biggest numbers, but what he did do was all the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. He did all the things that made the rest of the team better and allowed Aiden Hutchinson to get the sacks, allowed James Houston to get the numbers, allowed Romeo Okwara and the other pass rushers to go around him while he was stuck doing the dirty work in the middle. And I think he was kind of the glue and the cog that made the entire defense work. And without him, the defense and the team was very, very poor. But with him last season, the Lions went 9-3 and were a really good football team. So for $4.25 million a year, John Kaminsky is an amazing value, and I give it a B+ overall. I don't think it moves the needle for the Detroit Lions, but I think it makes them better to have John Kaminsky than to not have John Kaminsky. Getting into some of the free agency hires, however, this is where the team really started to see improvement, not just retaining the success that they saw a year ago. The first big signing in free agency after Cam Sutton was Emmanuel Mosley, the cornerback from the San Francisco 49ers, signing a 1-year, $6 million deal. Now, Emmanuel Mosley does have some injury concerns, did not play a lot of last season due to a torn ACL, and the season before only managed to be healthy for 11 games. But in the last 16 games that he played as the San Francisco 49ers starting boundary cornerback, he allowed 49 completions on 82 targets for just a 59.7 completion percentage against, 478 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 16 passes defended. Now, again, the injury concerns do lower this grade a little bit. I think $6 million a deal for somebody that is injury prone is a little bit of a risky move, but if it works out, we could have a number 1 cornerback type player on the roster for a really, really good value. overall, because it's a little bit risky but has some upside, I do give it a B. I think it makes the football team better, but again, like John Kaminsky, doesn't move the needle for me. A player that does move the needle a little bit further is David Montgomery, another player that is going to become a Detroit Lion, signing a 3-year, $18 million contract with the Detroit Lions on Wednesday night. David Montgomery is going to be one of the top free agents from this class, having a 3-year deal, $6 million a season, and being a top playmaker for the Chicago Bears since being drafted 4 seasons ago. He is going to be the replacement for Jamal Williams. Now, of course, I am sad to see Jamal Williams go. He was a player that I really enjoyed watching, a player that I really enjoyed being a part of this roster. But make no mistake, the Lions got an upgrade over Jamal Williams with David Montgomery. A player that makes more with less, a player that since entering the league 4 years ago has forced 185 forced missed tackles, which is 5th most in the entire league since being drafted in 2019. He's a player that makes something out of nothing. He's a player that is impossible to get to the ground in one-on-one scenarios, and running behind a very poor Chicago Bears offensive line for the past couple seasons have really diminished his numbers, but he's a great football player. He is arguably the most impressive offensive weapon the Chicago Bears have, and behind a really poor offensive line still had 4 straight seasons of 1,000+ scrimmage yards. Now you put David Montgomery behind a top 5 offensive line and a top 3 run blocking offensive line in the Detroit Lions, who gave Jamal Williams over 2.4 yards per carry before contact last season, and add that to a player that has the 5th most forced missed tackles since entering the league, and that is a recipe for success. David Montgomery has hit over 200 carries in all 4 seasons as a Chicago Bear, meaning he can carry the load like Jamal Williams, allowing DeAndre Swift to play more of a finesse role where he isn't going to be utilized and shouldn't be as susceptible to injuries. This is a great signing for the Detroit Lions. It's more expensive than what I think a lot of people were hoping to sign Jamal Williams for, and it is more expensive than what Jamal Williams got. But for $6 million a deal, you're getting a running back that makes people miss, that forces missed tackles, that can be a receiver out of the backfield, that can carry the load on offense so DeAndre Swift doesn't have to and can stay healthy, and you get a player that is a significant upgrade as an offensive playmaker over what you had for just a $2 million pay bump. I give this grade a B+. I don't think it's going to put the Lions in the playoffs, but I do think this is a really good move that makes the Lions a better football team than they would be without him. Similar to John Kaminsky, I think he will make the offense better around him while being an efficient playmaker at the same time. And then the Detroit Lions, while we were actually streaming on day 3 of free agency, went out and got some guard depth, went out and replaced Evan Brown, and brought back Graham Glasgow, the former 3rd-round pick of the Detroit Lions and former Michigan Wolverine. Now, Graham Glasgow did struggle last year. He allowed the most sacks in the NFL by an interior pass protector and did have quite a few costly penalties for the Denver Broncos. However, when he was leaving the Detroit Lions, he was one of the better young offensive linemen in the NFL and had some pretty good success in Denver before Nathaniel Hackett came over and screwed a lot of things up. Now, I understand why the Denver Broncos wanted to cut him. There was some cap casualty implications. There was some play implications. There could have just been they have somebody on their mind that they want to replace Graham Glasgow. But the Lions signing him for a 1-year up to $4.5 million, but not being guaranteed, does make a lot of sense for them. Yes, it's a little bit of an overpay. Yes, it's a lot of money to give to a backup guard, but it's a backup guard that can play anything from center, left guard, right guard, and in an absolute pinch could move all the way out to tackle and play that position as well. He is somebody that has starting experience, somebody that has starting reps, and somebody that has starting upside for significantly cheaper than the offensive lineman that we have on the roster right now. Now, I don't think that Graham Glasgow is coming in to replace Big V. In fact, I think he will be the Evan Brown replacement and will play kind of the backup guard or center role, whatever needs to be done as injuries arise and come up. But this is a good signing by the Detroit Lions. I think it makes the Detroit Lions' depth a little bit better, but I do think it was a slight overpay overall, giving it a B- grade, something that I think is going to improve the depth, but also is a little bit more on the expensive side for a player that potentially will not see the field in 2023. Now, overall, I think the Lions had a very good free agency period. I think they made a lot of moves that improved this football team, but failed to make a move that really moved the needle. Failed to make a move where I can say that player will make us a playoff contender. That player will put us from 9-8 to 10-7, from 9-8 to 11-6. I mean, that's why I can't give an A grade overall, but they did make moves to get better. Cam Sutton makes the team better. Emmanuel Mosley makes the team better. David Montgomery makes the team better. John Kaminsky coming back and Graham Glasgow being death do make the football team a better team, but it is not to the point yet where I think the Lions can consistently say they are going to be a shoo-in for the North. I don't think it's to the point where I could say the Lions are a 10, 12, even 13 game season, winning season that is. I don't think it's to the point where I can say the Lions are going to go from 9-8 to 10-7 to 11-6 to 12-5 because I don't think they've made that kind of addition to the team yet, but I do think they are a better football team now than when they ended the season. And for a 9-8 team that is incredibly young and looking to move forward into the future and find success, you don't need an A+ in free agency. You need to retain the talent you have, get a little bit better, find a couple of upgrades, and I think the Detroit Lions did just that. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about the Lions free agency process. What grade would you give them overall? Again, I gave them a B overall for adding good talent and good depth, but not moving the needle. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought. But with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions!